Hello, everybody. All right. This is the lesson for October 23rd. I'm still showing the notes we took on the 22nd because I promised a few people that were running out of time at the end of class on Thursday that they could see the notes. Here's where we left off. The important thing about this part of the video is them talking about the Iceman wasn't buried. Okay? So nobody cleaned him up and dressed him up in his best clothes and gave away his possessions to his kids. Okay? He just, boom, was dead. And we have who we think might be an ordinary person with all of his stuff in his regular life just all together. Okay? All right. The last thing I wrote down was Iceman was not buried. This means we can learn more about how people lived back then. Okay? Now, this is important. This is the NOVA video from 1992, made a few months after the discovery in the fall of 91. So it's not that they did a sloppy job, but it's that we hadn't learned very much yet. So a lot of this stuff is guesswork. Okay, now I'm going to hit play and get ready for some embarrassment, for some damage that was done to his body. There are parts missing.
But amid the excitement was growing controversy. Some vital parts of his body were missing, including the penis and most of the scrotum, perhaps accidentally broken off during the crude excavation.
They broke him off and they never found him.
The original removal of the body was, let's say, unfortunate. It was done without any kind of archaeological expertise, without any kind of observing of the context. That is to say, exactly how the body was lying, how deep it was, what kind of layers it was associated with, and so forth. That would have been very useful information.
The corpse suffered further by being allowed to thaw. When a fungus started growing,
He starts to mold.
a professor of anatomy was called.
Nachdem der Pilz relativ rasch gewachsen ist,
Fungus had spread relatively quickly.
So they kill the fungus with stuff that's basically like fingernail polish remover. It wouldn't hurt the body, but it killed the fungus. They put him back in the freezer because they learned their lesson. Okay. So you're watching this and fast forward with me now. Here's where they're taking care of the fungus. Okay. Now, they're going to go back up and study more about the place where the body was.
Snow. According to the map, the body appeared to have been found in Austria. But just as they were about to leave the mountain, the surveyors made a discovery. Another border post to the north. This meant that the corpse had lain in Italy by 300 feet.
The wrong country has
The body
him.
was now officially Italian, but was lying in a freezer in Austria. Before any investigation,
A tug of war.
the Italians and Austrians had to agree on a common strategy. While they argued, scientists...
The sign says south and north.
Though the body was out of reach, startling discoveries were about to be made by scientists investigating other aspects of the find.
One of the most exciting things
Okay,
about this
get ready. This
project
lady
is
talks
that
so fast.
Archaeology is multidisciplinary. Archaeology is not just digging stuff out of the ground. Archaeology involves botanists, it involves zoologists, it involves geologists, pathologists, medical doctors, museum conservators. All those people have to work together.
Did you catch that? Yeah, she talks really fast. Okay, so we're going to write that down. I'm going to rewind it. And get ready. We're going to write it here. Okay, now, remember, we're using the Iceman to do a bunch of science standards because he can make them really interesting. These could be really, really boring standards if I let them, but I don't want them to be boring. Okay, so here's your new notes for the day. 1023. The study of the Iceman, I'm going to go, the study of Ötzi, make it less, involved lots of different kinds of science. Okay. She listed off really fast several areas. Botany. That's the study of plants. Okay? And because this COVID year, we have to rush this stuff, so I'm going to give you a bunch of spoilers. He had 18 different kinds of wood with him. He had moss in his shoes for some padding. He had grass in his shoes for insulation. He had wheat in his pockets, and wheat, like crackers or bread, he had for part of his last meal. He has berries with him. He has leaves with him. Those are the things the botanists are going to study. Zoologists. I should have written zoology. Okay. I'll fix that. That's the study of animals. I'll white that out. Study of animals. And you think, man, Fiscus, he's not an animal. Well, technically he's a mammal, but what they're going to study is he's got a bearskin cap. You got to be pretty hardcore to kill a bear with a bow and arrow. He did. Okay. He's got wild goat meat in his stomach. He's got deer hair, some of his leather. Okay. He's got a part of a bird wing. I don't even know if they know why. I think he might have made needles out of the bird bones because of the way they break. That's a total guess. I'm making that part up. I'm writing zoology here. Study of animals. Okay. Pathologist. I did it again. It should be pathology. Okay. Now, I make a joke that's not the study of paths. That is the study of things that kill. If you watch creepy shows or like crime-solving shows about like somebody who's a psychopath, that means the path means killer and the psycho means crazy. Psychopath means crazy killer. Okay, pathology, they are people who study things that kill. That can be poisons, it can be accidents, it can be diseases. Okay, pathology is the study of things that kill. Because we want to know how he died. They haven't told you yet, and when they do tell you on this video, they're totally wrong. But study of deadly things. Okay, I have to rewind to make sure what else. She says like 6 or 7 of them.
Exciting things about this project is that it shows that archaeology is multidisciplinary. Archaeology is not just digging stuff out of the ground. Archaeology involves botanists, it involves zoologists, it involves geologists, pathologists, medical doctors, museum conservators. All those people have to work together.
Geology. Come on, spelled right. Come on. You can tell I'm tired when I misspell. Medical doctors. Like, why would a medical doctor be interested? Well, we want to know what diseases he had. He had several things wrong with him. Okay. They're going to study Woodsea's health and diseases. He's got germs that are thousands of years old too. They were frozen, they're inside of his gut and underneath his fingernails, that kind of stuff. Hopefully this whiteout is dry enough now. This is supposed to say geology. And it's still wet. Okay, the geologists are going to study how in the world the glacier didn't get a hold of his body and smush it. Study mountains and glaciers. Okay. The last thing she wrote, I'm going to see if I can fit it in here before I go to a new page, is museum conservators. These are the people who keep old stuff in good condition. Okay, so I'm gonna write that over here. So when somebody finds something that's old, you can't just put it in a museum because it might fall apart or rot. Okay, so like they were the ones that said you got to put this guy back in the freezer. Museum conservators. And you saw how they hacked the body out of the ice with the axe and stuff and ripped his clothes and his boots apart. These poor people, the museum conservators, they had to figure out how to put that leather stuff back together so we'd know what his clothes and shoes looked like. They did a great job. You're going to see them later. Museum conservators. This is preserving old items. Imagine somebody told you had to put this tattered coat back together. Like, thanks for ripping it apart, guys. All right, next, I'm going to go to a new page. Remember, you can pause this and hopefully zoom in on your screen if you need to make it bigger. Okay. Ouch, bonk. Okay, so this is 10/23/2020, page 2. Hitting play.
Use their special skills to learn about the past.
Scientists interested in glaciers wanted to know how something as delicate as a human body could have survived the grinding force of the ice for thousands of years. As far as they knew, nothing in the glacier could be more than 1,000 years old. Like rivers, glaciers flow. Anything in them will eventually emerge at the bottom. But this body had been found at the top of the glacier. 2 days after the corpse had been brought to Innsbruck, Eckhard Dreisaitl went to find out why the body hadn't flowed down with the ice.
This is what it looks like in late summer up there.
The landscape is formed.
The body is found right here.
Ridges, which are now covered with snow and only some small
By those fence
rocks
posts.
look through. And the position where the body was found is next to the left ridge. We think that down here the body was protected against the motion of the ice.
The body was located in a small depression in the rocks, the lowest position between the two ridges. During cold periods, the ice may have been 100 to 200.
The blue stuff is the ice. It can't quite get to him.
As the ice moved down into the valley,
That's how it didn't smush him.
over the two ridges. The body, nestled between them, was protected by the rocks against the friction and the motion of the ice.
If the ice would have gotten him, he would have just been
The climate in the Alps
smushed
is now warmer.
to a greasy spot.
Glaciers have been shrinking. Last year, a freak weather event hastened that retreat. In March, a desert storm in the Sahara had blown large quantities of dust over the Alps and onto the glacier.
And you know what happens when you get dark dust on top of snow. It's going to help melt
Had
faster.
been covered by snow in May, and then exposed again in the July heat.
Imagine dark dust on snow
Absorbed the sun's rays,
in the summer.
causing the ice below it to melt faster than usual. By late September, the glacier was melting at the spectacular rate of 4 inches a day. The body was found on the 19th of that month. While Dreisaitl and his colleagues were at the site, they noticed something half hidden in the ice.
We didn't consider it very important.
He's a geologist.
Because we came up to watch the landscape to see how large the glacier is in this area, and none of us had the idea that we were able to find anything. So it was quite a surprise when we approached these pieces of wood and found that these were arrows, and that was just a real big surprise to us because we knew that they had found 2 days earlier a bow, but they had not found the arrows to it. And here they were buried in the ice.
But what else was buried?
Now, here's how the pros
Archaeologists were about to find
get
out.
stuff out of the ice. Hear the sound? Hear that hiss?
Although a foot of snow had fallen in the meantime,
That's how you do it.
they found more artifacts.
They use a steam gun.
What looked at first like a small grass mat later turned out to be a short cape in which several human hairs were found. Before the restoration,
All right, I'm gonna
of the
fast
cape
forward
and
this
other
next part.
artifacts began, they were displayed to a riveted press.
All right. I'm at 16 minutes already. So what I want you to keep track of here is items found with Ötzi. He had a ton of stuff up there, okay? When they used the steam gun, they found all of his hairs that had fallen off his body. They found the pollen from the plants that he had walked by that washed off his body. Okay? They found tons of stuff. Okay? So the most important thing of all is the copper axe. Okay? A flint knife. Okay? You don't have to write all these down, but write down the important ones. These two are very important, okay? He had a backpack frame. He had a fire starting kit. He had a bearskin cap. Leather boots. He had berries. He had dried mushrooms. We'll talk about those later. He had okay, here's the thing. He was not up there hunting. How do we know that? He had a bow with him, but it wasn't even finished yet. You don't go hunting with a bow you haven't finished yet. Unfinished bow. He had 14 arrows, but only 2 of them were ready to shoot. The other ones weren't ready. 14 arrows, 2 were finished. Okay, he had so much other stuff. Okay, he had a quiver, which is what you carry your arrows in. A leather quiver. And I'm just going to leave the rest of that. Give yourself some room there. Remember, you don't have to write them all, but the copper axe and flint knife are super, super duper important. Okay? Also the arrows. I'm going to hit play. He had a fire striker.
Man glaubt, dass der Mann an Unterkühlung gestorben ist.
The man may have died of hypothermia. The weather changes unexpectedly. The visibility is poor, the wind is blowing, and the snow is falling.
Durch die Auskühlung. Mit seiner letzten Kräfte
The man is growing weaker. With his last bit of strength, he seeks shelter by a rock. There he dies.
Anschließend trocknete die Leiche aus. Ohne
Okay, I'm gonna hit
dass
fast forward.
irgendein Tier
Okay, did you catch that? They told you, that's the first time they tell you, and they tell you several more times, the poor guy died in a blizzard. Poor guy died in a blizzard, how sad. That's not what happened. Somebody killed him. I'll tell you about that later. Okay? Okay, he's showing you different artifacts. There's part of the shoe with a leather sole. It had grass stuffed in it to keep his feet warm. The grass grows in the mountains at elevations of 10,000 feet. Here's what they think he looked like. Okay? I'm going to hit pause again. Okay? This is a very talented artist drawing some of his stuff with him. Okay? We're at 20 minutes already. I'm watching the clock. Those are some of his tools. There's the axe. There's the berries. that bag is what he kept his knife in. Those are the dried mushrooms. Okay. Now, the interesting thing about these mushrooms is they're poisonous. Okay. I'm going to hit pause. Pause. So here's the thing about those mushrooms. The doctors found out later that he had an infection. Okay. And these poisonous mushrooms people have known for a long time, these mushrooms can act like an antibiotic. I don't know if you've ever heard of penicillin. It's made out of a fungus, like mushrooms are a fungus. Okay, so the theory is that Ötzi would dip these nasty dried mushrooms in hot water to make like a medicine tea. It would taste super nasty, but it would help fight off infection. Okay, now this is the most important thing of the day. Here's a myth. Ötzi died in a blizzard. They told people that right off the bat in 1991. Ötzi died in a blizzard. He didn't. He died, somebody killed him, and then a snowstorm, he was freeze-dried and then buried in snow, so the animals didn't eat his body. Okay, this is a myth. He did not die in a blizzard. Okay, but for 12 years, people believed this before we found out what really killed him. Somebody shot him in the back. We found the arrowhead deep inside of him. Okay, Ötzi died in a blizzard. Poor guy died in a blizzard. No, he didn't. Somebody killed him on purpose.
Have antibiotic or...
I'm going to fast forward. She's going to talk about the mushrooms. Okay. Now we're talking about the plants. This guy's excited about the kinds of grass and the kinds of wheat that he had with him, and the berries. That's the berries they found with him. They were ripe berries. They're like they're kind of a wild plum. Okay. Here they identify the species of the grass in his shoes. These are all different specialists. Okay. He had different kinds of wood with him and wheat in his stomach. This person's cleaning off his axe using really careful techniques. Okay. This is one of the poor guys who had to put the clothes back together. Okay. I'm going to tell you a little bit more. I'm going to hit pause. We're almost out of time. Pause. All right. Now, we think he was about 5'2", about 110 pounds, and he may have been around 45 years old, which is pretty old for back then, we think. Around 45 years old. Okay? We're going to stop there because the next part of the video is pretty complicated. I don't want to stop. I don't want to have this be at the end of the video. So we'll pick up the next part on Monday. Remember to email me if you have any questions. Okay? If you find this stuff interesting, all you have to do is Google Ötzi, and you will find so much stuff you won't even believe it. Different theories on what he was doing up there. Remember, he wasn't hunting. All kinds of stuff. They've done DNA research on him and found out that to see if he had any kids, if there was anybody living that could say they were related to Ötzi. They did all kinds of stuff. We know now that he was lactose intolerant. He had Lyme disease. He had arthritis. We know his last meal inside of his stomach. We know all kinds of stuff. All right. So this is 24 and a half minutes, and I'm going to end it now. See you on Monday.